Hey everyone, it's Carrie Arnold, used to be Carrie Querent, if that name sounds more familiar to you. And I am the GulfCorps Program Assistant for the Student Conservation Association. A lot of you are probably familiar with me. I was a crew leader in year 2 of the program, and then I've been sticking around to help out with orientation and a bunch of the monitoring work for both SCA and the other teams in general. And so I'm going to be creating a video on the basics of how to use Google Earth Pro, which is the software, the free software that we use to create the maps from all the GPS tracks that you guys have been collecting out in the field. Yes, we do something with that data. So throughout the video, feel free to pause the video and kind of play around with the program. But I'm going to try to walk through steps pretty slowly so that you can follow along. But it does a good job, the program does a good job of explaining things too. So just to give you an overview of what this video is going to look like. First, we're going to download the program. And second, when you have the program start up, it's going to pull up these startup tips, which you can click through yourself, but it's a little bit confusing, so I'm going to walk through that with you guys as well. Next is an overview of the other tools that aren't included in the startup tips. And we're going to focus on these 4 tools, the waypoint, polygon, path, and ruler tool. And then once you've learned these 4 tools, we can do an activity that's going to give you some metrics, and it's going to focus on Camp Beckwith, which you guys should be familiar with, or a lot of you, because that's where we had our GulfCorps orientation last September. So after that, we're going to create a map of the work you just made. And I'm also going to walk you through drawing some other areas on the map just to fill it up. And I'm going to show you how to save this image as a map, adding a legend and a title, just so when someone opens this, they understand what they're reading and can navigate it. And you're gonna, at the end of this video, you're going to email that map as well as the metrics that you collect during this activity. Great. So I'm gonna go ahead and get started with downloading the program. Switch over to this screen, our GulfCorps Facebook page. So we'll go to Google. And I find it easiest to use Google Earth, Google Chrome, because this is a Google product, but you can open up any browser that you have to download this. And we're just going to type in Google Earth Pro download. And if you saw that, it does say Google Earth Pro download for Mac or Windows. You can just put download and it'll give you those options here. So we'll just click on this first one. And it'll give us 3 options. So you can do Google Earth on the web, Google Earth on mobile, and Google Earth Pro on desktop. Today, we're going to download the Google Earth Pro on desktop. If you do not have a laptop or desktop, feel free to download it on mobile or on the web. I think if you're using a Chromebook, you have to download it on the web. So all of these are going to look very similar, and if they do not, feel free to give me an email. After this, I'll put my information and we can try to do some of that troubleshooting. So you're just going to click on the one you want and download Earth Pro onto desktop. It's going to ask you just some terms of service. You can read over this if you want and click accept and download. And it's going to pop up in the corner that it's starting to download. It's a pretty quick one depending on your computer speed. So you can see that it's installing. And the program is going to open up automatically. Let me change the screen so you can see what that looks like. So these are the startup tips, and we're just going to walk through these along this column here. First is navigating in Google Earth. So that's talking about how you move this globe around. So first, if you look over here, we're going to look at these controls. It says use look, the top of the controls, to look around from one vantage point. So if we just click, you can see that's going to move the entire globe. And it's going to take us out into space. So this is a really big picture tool. And it's nice because it'll tell you true north as well. Next, it says to click and drag the ring to rotate the view. So this is the ring. You can click and drag, and this is just going to rotate the Earth. So this one rotates the globe as a whole, and it sends you into space as well. And this one is just going to rotate the Earth, or the globe. All right, next it says you can move, or use move center of the controls to move down, up, right, or left. So that's this again, and it's just saying you can do this. You can click around like this. So it might be kind of fun to pause and play around with some of these tools once we go over all of them. And last is the zoom slider tool to zoom in and out. This is where you're going to get close to, so we'll go ahead and zoom into the Gulf Coast area. And you can see that I used my mouse. You can just click your mouse and drag where you want to go. That's another way to do it. Or you can use these tools. And for zooming in and out, you can also just use your mouse if you're using a mouse. Zoom in and zoom out. And so that's how you navigate the screen you have. Next is just asking you to send some feedback. So if you're having any issues with the software, I would suggest reaching out to this help center. Next, we're going to navigate with Street View. This is probably something you have seen if you've ever used Google Maps. It's going to kind of show you like what it would look like if you're walking on the street. So it tells us to zoom in until the little peg man pops up. So you'll see him, and then we want to drag. We'll put him on some land and drop him. And so it's going to take us, I believe this is over in Louisiana. Move this out of the way. So yeah, this is similar to what Google Maps looks like. You can see the buildings, you can scroll forward down the street, just kind of get familiar. This is a nice way to get familiar with a site if you haven't been there before, especially if you're going to be working along roads. And if you switch over to the building, this is a more of an abstract view. This is really nice if you're trying to determine elevations or just terrain in general. We're not going to use this one as often. So we'll go back there. Next is to find your house. And I'm sure a lot of you have done this before. So over here is the search bar where you can look for whatever location you want. I'm going to put in my office here in Mobile. Once you click search, it's just going to take you right over there. There we are. And so I can grab him and I can look. It's going to take us probably right inside the building. Yes, let's scroll out. And so we're on this abstract view, and so you can see the trees look a little funky, but again, it's just showing the different elevation. So let's click on the person so we can see what it really looks like. So it looks like the building is under construction right here. So that must have been taken about 1.5 years ago. So this is a good thing to show you guys is that, so Google can't update images this close, you know, every second. And so a lot of these images can be up to 1 to 3 years old. So this is about 1.5 years. which is something you might want to consider when you're planning projects if you're using this tool. All right, next let's search for places. So you can search project site you're familiar with or anything else. You don't have to be super exact. So one of our projects is at the bird sanctuary on Dauphin Island, Alabama. So I'm just gonna put Dauphin Island bird sanctuary, and see, it'll already recognize what you're looking for. So that's the actual name of the bird sanctuary, and we can click search. And it'll pop us right there, just in case you kind of forgot what the name of something was that you were working on. All right, next is going to be viewing the layers. So this isn't something that I use very often, but this is what they're talking about. And it says layers display a variety of interesting geographic content. To view a layer, check on the layers panel. So let's go over here and just look through what they have. So the only one that I've ever really used is the roads. So I'll click on the roads. You can see that that'll pop right up. And this is really helpful. I know some of the teams have done some work spraying invasives along roadways. So if we're planning, you know, a burn, this can be really helpful to know where the roads are in case we don't want smoke going onto those roadways. So it's a great planning tool. We'll bring this back over here. So you can play around with these, but we're not going to focus on that too much. Next is using tours, and that's one of the buttons up here. This is basically, you can just record yourself and create kind of a virtual tour of an area. Again, I haven't used this one, but I think it would definitely kind of fun and maybe an activity that y'all as a team could do for one of your sites. And lastly on here is viewing locations from the past. And again, this is one of the tools up here. This is a nice tool that you can see how a habitat has changed over time. We've checked this out for, I'll use Dauphin Island as an example again, just of the erosion of the beach. So I'll show you that example when we go through these tools up here. So I'm gonna go ahead and close out of this, but if you log out, it's going to, and pull this back up, it's always going to bring up the startup tips unless you click this. So just leave this up and then you can always use this to navigate if you forget anything. So we'll just close that. And next I want to go over these tools right here. So first is the waypoint tool, and we'll continue. Let's actually, let me switch over to Camp Beckwith. So it's a site that we all should be familiar with. Just jumping over the bay. All right, so our first tool is the waypoint tool. And you see that it's going to drop a point. And so you can just pick it up, move it around. You're going to hold your cursor down while you're moving this. And so let's go ahead and I'm going to put this right here because this is the main parking lot. And we can call this whatever we want. I'm going to put main parking lot. And you can edit this however you want. This will really help when you make the legend. So you can choose the icon color. So right now it's yellow. Let's go ahead and make that black just because it's a parking lot. And you see it'll change. And then the label is the main parking lot text right there. So let's go ahead and keep that white. And you can add a description. Let's say max capacity. So you can add a description here. Let's say max capacity of the parking lot is 80 cars. And this can be really helpful if you're planning an event or you're planning a project. You can just put a description in here. So we can click OK. And if you wanted to edit this, you would just right click and you can go to properties and it'll bring that back up for you and it'll allow you to move it around again. So we'll place it back there. And you can see when I move this, it changes the latitude and longitude, which are our coordinates, which is going, if we uploaded this information to the GPS, it would actually allow us to walk directly to that point. So I'm going to move it back. But that's a great tool. So let's click OK. Next is the polygon tool. It says add polygons. We're going to click that. And this is what we're going to want to find an area calculation. So let's just test this out. Let's do the perimeter of this marsh right here. I'm just trying to think of stuff that's different from the activity I'm going to have you guys do. So I'm just clicking around this marsh because I want to see how much wetland they have on this property. And you can zoom in if you want to be more exact. Zoom back out and make sure, so if see what it'll do? We don't want to do that. So say you did that because you're wanting to scroll because this is on that side of the page. So that's fine. Let's just go ahead and use this tool. Remember the navigation tools to get us centered. And so if we want to delete some points, you can just click on that point and click the right click mark and it'll delete it. See how it's bringing up that slash. So let's just delete all of those because they're extra. And then we have this. So we're going to name this March. And so this is like an outline. I think we can just leave that the way it is. Let's do a light green for marsh. You can see how it'll change. So we have that marsh area. And on another video, I'll show you how you can find the area calculation for that. All right, let's continue. This is the add path tool. So this is if you're just wanting to do a line. And let's move over, let's see. Let's just do a path of this circle right here. So we can start right here. This is the roadway. We'll click our way around. Say I accidentally did that again. Again, click with your right clicker to undo. We'll call this inner road. We can change the color if we want because the white might not stick out. Let's go ahead and do black again for roadway. And you can tell that that's pretty hard to see, so we can actually increase this. So you can actually see how thick it's going to get. So we'll do 4. And we're still pretty good. So again, we can right click, go to properties if we want to edit. It looks like we're a little bit off in a couple spots. So you can kind of play around with that. Okay, great. So these are the 3 of the main tools that we're going to use today. So if you want to pause the video and go back and practice these, this would be a great time to do that. The next tool is to add an image overlay. So I rarely use this tool I'm not gonna go over what it's gonna look like because we're not gonna be using it today. But this is where if you had an image or a link, so say we wanted to add the GulfCorps logo, so we got that from the website and put it on here, it would just overlay that image right on here. So Beckwith might want to do that for their camp, because if we scrolled out, then you would just see a big icon for Beckwith, and that might be a nice tool for folks that are traveling from far away. Let's just click cancel. Next is to create a tour or record a tour. We're not going to do that today, but you can play around with that a little bit. It's kind of easy to see what it is because it's a little camera. This one is the historical imagery with what I was talking about. Let's go ahead and play around with it and see. So it goes back to 1997. I'll scroll out a little bit so we can see. So if we go all the way back to, it looks like it updated in 1992. All right, and I'm gonna click travel through time. You can see how Google started updating everything. So not a whole lot of change. One thing I think is a little interesting is if we looked at this canal just north of the property, you can see that changing a little bit over time. See how far it used to extend back? And that might have just been that it was flooding too. So that's some stuff that we could look at with this tool. We'll just click us through quickly. And it brings us back. So this area, you're probably not going to see a lot of historical change, but some areas you definitely can, especially with those barrier islands eroding, such as Dauphin Island. All right, moving on, we have called the Sunlight Landscape tool. I think it wants me to turn that off first. And this is going to have us go through time. You can see what it looks like at night. And if we click on this, you can click sky and it'll bring us out into space. This is another fun tool if you're interested in astronomy or anything out of this world. There's also Mars. So this is a cool tool they have because of the rovers on Mars. And you can actually do, if you zoom close enough, I think it allows you to go to street view, maybe. Maybe not, but you can see the craters and also the moon. And so if anybody is really interested in that and wants to study that kind of stuff, this is an awesome tool. But again, not something we're going to focus on today. So let me get us back to Earth and get us back to Camp Beckwith. It's kind of fun just to watch it zoom in and out sometimes. And you'll see that it kept everything we created. And so that would actually delete if you were to cross out. You have to save your places. So go to save and save my places, and then that'll keep these things that you make right here. Awesome. So next is this ruler tool. And it's going to let us know. So let's use this again. I'm going to do this canal because I just saw that and I'm a little interested in it. Let's move this guy. So we can do feet, inches, kilometers, meters. Let's go ahead and do meters to be a little bit more scientific. So I'm going to do a path and see just how long this is from the bay here. Just to give us an estimate. It looks like it kind of ends up in here. So that's about 1,200 meters. We can switch this out, which is nice. See how many miles that is the equivalent to, how many feet, and so forth. You can play around with this as well. You can do radius, 3D path, and 3D polygon. For today, we're going to focus on this path because I believe that this is what you would use most of the time to go over like boardwalks and stuff like that. And let's see, polygon, and this is, so let's cross out all of that, go back to ruler. And this is another way you can find area. So if I wanted to find the whole area of this, you can just keep adding. This is why I prefer doing it the other way, because this one can get a little challenging. So we'll just do kind of the entrance point of that canal. You can get a nice area right here. And so that's square meters, but let's do acres because that's what we do. We report everything in and give us a nice acreage. So we can go ahead and clear that. Just to finish up these tools right here, this is emailing. So if you wanted to send a screenshot of the work you did, you can do that. It's going to ask you to log in. Here you can print. And so here you'll see that it wants you to make a map, and we're going to go over that afterwards. Exit out of that. You can save image. This is another way to make the map. And you can view your work in Google Earth. I mean Google Maps, my apologies. And so this is just going to take us to Google Maps. Let's go back to Google Earth Pro. Awesome. All right, I'm going to go ahead, and so you can take these off if you don't want to see them on the screen just by clicking on them, but they'll still be there. And so that's how you close these out, and you can actually minimize that to clean up your workspace a little bit. So learning all those tools, we're going to move on to the activity. Let me pull up my guide again. So the activity is you're going to search for Camp Beckwith, which I've showed you how to do. You're going to use the waypoint tool, which is the pin tool, to drop a waypoint at the entrance of the camp. And you're going to use the ruler tool to measure how long the pier is. That would be using the path of the ruler tool. Use the track tool to create a track of the entrance road, so not the inner circle like we've already done, but just that long entrance road. And then use the polygon tool to draw a polygon over the area of all the housing, as well as any of the buildings on the property. And use the ruler tool again to find its acreage. So go ahead and pause the video so you can do these. And then we're going to, once you come back, we're going to go ahead and create a map of your work. So pause the video, do those. If you have any questions, reach out to your leaders, and we'll get this started. Great work. And now we are going to create a map of all that hard work. All right, so while you were working on that, I did the same thing. You just can't see the acreage or the ruler tool out here. So you're gonna have to submit that data to your leaders to get credit for this. But, so looking at this, we have an idea of, say you were wanting to know where to go to get to the buildings at this camp. So we have the entrance, we have the entry road, and we have the buildings. So we don't maybe want just this gray square here, so we can edit this, go to properties again. Remember, it was a right click as well. Go to style and color. And here where it says filled and outlined, we can just do outlined. That way you can see what's inside. You can also do just filled. So let's do outlined, or you can, let's see, if we do filled and outlined, you can actually make it a little bit more opaque. So that's kind of fun. Let's do 50%. That way you can see what's inside. So there's a lot of different ways you can edit these, you can play around with. Awesome. So we have a couple things on our map. Let's go ahead and create it and save it. So the way we do that is these tools up here. Let me let this move out of the way. Again, the save image tool, we'll click that. We can use our mouse to scroll around to where we want. We can zoom in and out if we want it to be further away. Let's make sure we get all of Camp Beckwith here. We'll zoom out just a little bit so we can get that pier in. Awesome. I feel like that's a good map. So let's go ahead and title this. You can just click here. We'll title Camp Beckwith. And here I want you to put your name and the date. Let's put a comma. So today is the 9th. And to save that, you just click out of it. You can see our nice title here in the corner. Next, which is really important for every map, is the legend. So we can click here. And so why is this popping up? The Beckwith Camp and Conference Center. So sometimes there's going to be icons that already come with your map. We can just take that off if we want, or we can leave it on. But since we've already said that this is Camp Beckwith, let's just go ahead and take that off. And then we have all of our things we just put on here. So the entrance, the entry road, which is here in black, and then our housing and buildings. So what if we wanted to change the names of these? You can just click, delete, and just put entrance again. I think entry road is good, and housing and buildings. So let's just put this as urban development. If we close out, it's going to change, and you can also move these guys around. Say you want to, I would suggest keeping them on the top of the map, but say you want them to be able to look in the same area, and there you have it. And so how we're going to save this, let's just click Save Image. All right, so we've clicked Save Image, and it's going to want us to select an area to save it as. And funny enough, it selected our Camp Beckwith project site. But for these purposes, you guys can create a folder wherever you'd like to save this. I think it's easiest if you're not really familiar with organizing it, just go ahead and create a folder for Google Earth products. You can save it wherever you like on your computer, but let's name it again, your last name and the date. And we'll just put Google Earth Pro tutorial. So let's make sure we name this the same way and send this to our leaders. And you can save it as a JPEG and click save. Awesome, so that should be everything. Just make sure that you send to your leaders this image that we just created along with the metrics for how long the pier is and the acreage of this area right here. But great job, everybody. If you have any questions, let me pull up my information real quick. So if you need to get a hold of me with any questions, here's my email. Just reach out to me, but first thing, reach out to your core staff and your leaders. And great job today. I can't wait to see all of y'all learning this software. It's really fun. You can do a lot with it. And there's going to be more videos to come on topics similar to this. So look out for those, and I'll see you guys soon.